Box. That is a YouTube channel as well. So what I'm going to ask you to do right now is go to your phones, go to your YouTube, and follow Growing Out the Box. He said he wants to get to 1 million followers, so let's help him do that. All righty, and our other panelist is Alicia Williams. She is the founder of The Cardboard Garden, with the focus on sustainability and innovation. She combines modern hydroponic techniques with traditional in-ground farming to cultivate gourmet lettuces, okay, vibrant microgreens, and culinary herbs. So if you are interested, we're gonna ask you to come on over here to the farmers panel, and we're gonna learn a little bit more about that. So I'm gonna hand it over to you, Patricia.
Okay, farmers panel, thank you for being at Veggie Taste Festival 15th annual. This is the first gardening panel, I believe, so shout out to all the farmers and the people that want to learn how to grow food. This is where you need to be, okay? So let's get the questions going. My first question to the group is, why do you believe growing your own food is so important today? And you guys can answer the question wherever you feel like you want to jump in. Why do you believe growing your own food or growing our own food is so important today?
Mic work? Okay, cool. Great question. I think it's really important that you grow your own food because you know exactly where it comes from. You don't have to be you don't have to worry about having chemicals in it or whether some dog peed on it or pooped on it or anything like that. You can just focus on the quality, so the quality and the nutrients. So that's my little short answer. There's more, but yes.
All right, I have a similar response. I think, you know, we sit and we think about going to the grocery store, and there's so much stress in everything we do, and we worry about what we eat, where it came from, how it was grown, what was put in it. And even when it says organic, we don't know what that means all the time. By definition, that doesn't mean that it's healthy in the grocery store just because it says organic. We don't know what's done to our food. So I think it's important for everyone to know how to grow just because of the state of what's going on in this country. And I think just for our own personal health, I think it's important for us to all know how to grow just like we know how to add and subtract. I think everyone on this planet needs to know how to grow.
All right, for me, I guess you might say a number that made the whole thing make sense to me, and that was 2020. That's why I believe we all should have to learn how to grow. 2020 for me was that time, and of course we all know what 2020 was, where I really realized that I did not have control over anything in terms of security for the family, not knowing where the next meal would come from when they were rationing out foods to the grocery stores. So that to me was a light that turned on and caused me to plant my first seeds just 5 years ago, or 4 years and some change. And simplicity with a twist of textbook is what I call my style. I basically show and tell. I do the thing and then I try to explain to you what it is that I'm doing, and hopefully that you'll leave with more than what you came with. And that's been pretty much the success of growing my YouTube channel, Facebook, Instagram. Right now I'm over 1 million followers collectively throughout all the social media platforms. And a big part of that is because I try to spoon feed the information as opposed to forcing it on. So yeah, food security, that's 2020. That triggered the switch for me.
Awesome, thank you for your answers for that first question to get us going. So here is the next question for the panel. This is maybe more of a community question. I know you all do your community work, so here's the question. How does food and soil justice play a role in your work? how does food and soil justice play a role in your work?
Cool. Let's see. So yeah, usually most of the time, well specifically, I'll talk about the soil first. But they're both completely together. Food and soil are both two important things. When you take care of the soil, you don't really have to worry about the food. And so for me, the food justice and soil justice are both the same thing, but essentially, you got to take care of the. Anybody seen Horton Hears a Who? Horton Hears a Who? A person is a person, no matter how small, or a microbe is a microbe, no matter how small. So like that's usually how I treat the garden. No tilling, making sure you're keeping the soil covered, making sure you're keeping something growing there, whether it's a weed or something you intentionally planted. Yeah, so for food justice, making sure I have as much biodiversity as possible. But for soil justice, for food justice, it's a little bit more complicated. Growing food is like a political act, so everyone is making a vote. You're voting with things you're growing, with the food that you're eating, and the way that you actually grow it. And so it's always political. Like we live in the middle of a food desert, or at least I live in the middle of a food desert right here in Southwest Atlanta. So there's not really much. There's not as much food options as other places. And so soil justice and food justice work both get together. When you're starting a worm bin, or you're growing your microbes, or whatever you're doing, it's a revolutionary act to be able to plant a seed. So to answer your question, I hope that answered your question.
All right, I want to talk about the soil, so I'm going to piggyback off of you talking about soil health. So being called the cardboard garden is because I believe the best way to start a garden is with cardboard. You know, we can get into a lot of details about what kind of cardboard and all this and that, but not messing with the soil and letting it do its thing and keeping those microbes alive, and life in the soil is what brings life into our food. And so when it comes down time for food sovereignty or food justice, I'd say the same, similar, talking about how we don't know how to grow. A lot of people don't know how to grow, or when they try to grow, they're not successful. And so that's what I want to do, is take the mystery out of it, so that people know it can be simple as putting down cardboard, putting down compost, and starting your garden. It doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to till. You don't have to buy a lot of expensive additives and chemicals and all these things. And once we learn how to take care of the soil, we can learn how to take care of ourselves. And so that's where I think the justice really comes from.
Food and soil justice. This is my first time publicly speaking in terms of the garden. For me, I really don't even know how to answer that, to tell you the truth. But what I can say is purpose. You know, just again, I go back to 2020 and getting sick for the first time in my life, and really not having an idea what to do next and turn into the garden. You know, that happens to be my fix and moving forward. And it's kind of like being chosen for a path that you really don't even understand yet. So I'm still figuring out what it is, food, service, and justice, or whatever. But my main purpose in doing what I do is just to share what it is that I'm doing. And like I said, a big part of my presentation is show and tell. You know, I'm not a college educated individual with, you know, botany and all of that stuff under my belt. But what it is, I can grow food. And I think that's the biggest part of my food justice, is being able to share that. That is my blessing, and being able to pass that from one to the other. You know, when I put it in the soil, it's gonna grow. People want to know how I make it grow. I can tell you that. That's my purpose. You know, each one teach one.
All right, thank you so much. I think that I'm familiar with everyone's growing space here. We do have a lot of space, but everyone doesn't have access to land or even a large backyard to grow for. So I want to kind of touch on that. So for anybody in the audience who may live in an apartment or a small space, Can you guys share some creative ways that they can start growing their food? Oh, it's for you guys. For the questions for the panel.
Great question. So I have a company, it's called Glycosponge. Glycosponge, we make a lot of food scrap. We take food scraps and we feed them to worms, earthworms. And so we take those earthworms and take the poop from the earthworms and put it in the soil. And mostly I don't have to worry about anything else. After that, it's like the best organic fertilizer on the planet. So I actually started in this, and maybe you don't have a growing space like Patricia said. I started out on my mom's back porch. It was like a 4 foot wide and about 12 foot long. And it had a wooden floor. And whenever I watered my plants, the water would go down to the bottom. For who was below me, I'm sorry, whoever that neighbor was, they never complained about it. They weren't really out there that much. So, but I started a worm bin. And the worm bin is like one of the easiest things that you can start with. Literally just get a container of some type. You need drainage, you need your worms, and you need leaves. And from that point, they just do their thing. They just make sure they just honestly do all the work for you. They're the best employees ever. Not really employees, more of like workers, but that's just their thing. But worms are the easiest thing to start with for me personally, because then you can make your own soil mixes from that. You can go feed those worms and go catch some fish. It's like a good building block starting out. So if you can grow worms, you can grow plants and other things.
All right, well, I definitely think I'd like to learn more about vermicomposting. Yeah, so, yeah, I've got some bins we need to get together. So I have a little bit of different spin on that. I also grow hydroponically, which is growing without soil. And so that eliminates to me any requirement of someone saying, hey, I don't have enough space, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough whatever. If you grow hydroponically, you do. You can grow indoors. The biggest investment would be the lights, in my opinion. You can get bins from Home Depot and drill holes in them, put the net pots in, drop your plants in, learn a little bit about putting your nutrient mix together, and you're off to the races. And that doesn't require any space at all. If you've got a corner in your house that you can put a light bulb in, you can grow. And that's what I want to do, is I want people to be able to come and visit my farm, which is my house, it's my home. It's an urban farm, and be inspired and see that there's so many different ways to grow. I have commercial hydroponic systems, I have homegrown systems that I've built myself. I grow in the ground. I want people to see container gardens. I want people to see that there are so many options to grow, that there are no limitations. So when we say, hey, I don't have enough space, I'm renting, all these reasons, I don't have the money, you can grow in a cardboard box on your porch. There's no limitations that everyone needs to grow. So that's my mantra, that everybody needs to be growing something.
Vertical gardening. That's about as simple as it gets. Grow up. I got 6,400 square feet of garden space, 2 acres in my backyard, and 6,400 that is designated to strictly gardening. Even with the space that I have, I try to maximize that space, and that is vertical. Everything goes vertical. Even with the, like a lot of the stuff that I do in the garden is kind of teetered on spiritual, so I build stuff like an obelisk, which is a little tower with the little pyramids that they would use over in Egypt. For me, that's part of that spiritual connection that I have with the soil and the connection above. So vertical gardening to me is just a little more than just putting up a wall or allowing certain things to climb. It's that connection, spiritual grounding, so there is no excuse to not be able to grow, because like I said, you could have anywhere from a 24-inch growing platter and grow straight up bush vegetables, bush cucumbers, bush watermelons. I mean, there's so many things that you can grow in a compact space. So there's really no such thing as you don't have enough space, but vertical garden would be my answer to growing in smaller spaces. It's relatively simple. Big, small, it's all the same because it all starts from the soil.
Once upon a time, I was a beginner gardener. And still am, always learning all the time. When I started my journey, I actually went to my friend here, Alicia, who taught me about seeds and seed collecting and seed sharing with other growers. And then my other friend down there in the Yamke, he came over with a bucket full of worms. And he got me going. So thank you guys. All right. Well, let's get on to another question. Can each of you share a story, a short story about a time when a personal gardening win or failure taught you a valuable lesson?
Well, my sister told me don't answer this way, but you know, I gotta do it my way. It's just, I don't know what failure is, you know, because the only failure is to quit. And no matter what it is that I do, that's in the garden, life in general, you know, everything is about not quitting. Even if the things don't go according to the plan, you may have to take a few steps back to move forward. There's no such thing as a failure, you know, only in the quit. And that's something that I don't do. So that's a little cocky on my side, but you know, that's my stance on what it is that I've learned from failures and wins in the garden. And the win is to never fail, you know, because you never quit. And that goes even from the beginning and learning how to start growing, planting your first seeds, and watching that plant break ground and start to form leaves. For me, that was a fascinating, just the whole presence of that was fascinating. So I started learning about what makes it do that. And again, simplicity with a twist of textbook. I try to share the simple thing of breaking ground, and you were saying on the end about the microbes and the bacteria that's used, the fungi that's used to extend the roots down into the soil. So there's no such thing as a loss. Even if you don't have a successful crop that year, there's no such thing as a loss, because there's going to be something that you can learn from it. Even if it's a what not to do next time, there's no such thing as a loss, you know, because the object is to start back the next season. And that's the same thing with life, you know. I mean, we have seasons. It's not always a good season. Sometimes it snows, sometimes it rains, sometimes it hails. But the beginning is the end, and it just continues to cycle itself. And that's what the garden represents to me. So there's no such thing as a failure, only for a quit. And I don't quit.
No failures, only lessons. No failures, only lessons. Alicia?
All right, I will talk about my toughest year farming called 2025. And this was an interesting year because at some point, I do this every season, where I tell the plants they live outside, do the best they can. Like, y'all live outside, y'all gonna do the best you can. I've done enough. But, you know, consistency this year has been difficult for me. And so there was a one point where all my growing space outside, I planted half of it, tomatoes were growing, peppers were growing, cabbage was growing, all these things were growing, and I just let it run wild for the rest of the season. And when I looked, it's like I looked up one day and I was like, what happened? It was a complete jungle. Everything that I had not planted was growing, everything under the sun. And I had to go and I had to ask for help. And he's right, there isn't such thing as failure. The only way to fail is to quit. So I asked for help, and I had a friend come, and we had to pull everything out by hand and start over, and that's where I'm at, is starting over for my fall garden this year. And, you know, I could count it as a failure and say, oh my gosh, you know, this was tough, but real life happens. And we have to take care of ourselves, and sometimes we have to take that break, we have to be kind to ourselves. And, you know, when people say, oh, I'm not good at growing, you know, my plants die, this, that, the other, the plants don't mind. The tomato plants did not mind that I didn't look at them for 3 weeks in a row. They still gave me lots of great tomatoes. So that's one of the things that I do like about farming, is that it is forgiving, as long as you're forgiving to yourself. And the plants will still grow, and there isn't such thing as failure in farming. The plants don't mind.
Can you remind me the question one more time? Story about a failure.
I said, could you share a story about a time or personal gardening win or lesson?
Awesome. Okay. So I think it's definitely, from what both of you guys said, specifically, like there is no such thing, like you guys said, no such thing as failure. And then also in that case, for me personally, I'm always planting things. Like always, you guys are going to always be planting, and I just try to make sure I'm always planting something. And that can be through planting like maybe 1 week and then planting the next week and the next week after that. But a story that I have is about my worms. Funny enough, because I thought that the worms could survive outside during the winter. This time when I forgot it, I thought that they could survive outside. They can in certain situations, but when it freezes, whatever water is inside of your worm bin is gonna freeze as well. And I forgot about that. So my worms actually got. You guys ever seen like a meat when you put like a piece of meat through like an extruder and it comes out? That's kind of how my worms look. But they were still partly alive. But I left them outside another day after that, and then they were just frozen, completely solid. It was like crystallized worms. So that was I had like around like 8 bins that just gone, just like that, 2 days, because it was freezing. And so that was I guess that you could consider that to be a failure, because I lost a lot of worms from that. But one important thing is that worms actually can reproduce themselves every month. Every month and every 3 months is when they actually have new babies. So even though I lost all those worms, I was able to learn from the situation. Don't leave your worms outside in the freezing cold, because they will die. Yeah, so always be planning, and then also, whatever you put in is what you're gonna get out. So you wanna make sure that you're not, even if you do have a situation where things don't go as planned, you just keep doing it, keep going for it. Yeah.
Thank you.